What's up, guys? Finally, we have another matchup to be talking about. So, we have the President's Trophy winners of last year versus the current President's Trophy winners. So, the Florida Panthers versus the Boston Bruins. Yes, it was a battle to the end for Florida to clinch a spot and also for the Islanders. So, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Ottawa, and others did not make the playoffs, unfortunately. But it's good to see that we have another matchup to talk about. So, the Florida Panthers against the big bad Bruins. This is going to be easy for a lot of people when it comes to predicting who wins the series. Everyone's saying that Boston's going to win. People were actually preferring the Islanders to be the matchup as opposed to the Florida Panthers, since the Islanders and Boston Bruins have a solid history in the playoffs, and the Islanders have upset the Boston Bruins in the past. The Florida Panthers, yes, they beat the Washington Capitals last year, but they're not the best team in the playoffs, and they're a fairly young team in the playoffs in terms of their playoff history and what they're capable of doing. So you have Matthew Tkachuk, who comes from the Calgary Flames, literally the MVP of the Florida Panthers this year, carries the Florida Panthers, into a playoff spot. But can he be the X factor to eliminate the Boston Bruins? Because the Boston Bruins are the most complete team, and it's going to take more than just Matthew Tkachuk to beat the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, well, I think what's interesting about this series is I think it's actually going to be a lot tougher than people might give it credit for, in the sense where, you know, Florida's a weird team, okay? They're a very weird team. They've had a very weird season this year. They had a really bad start to the year, and a lot of people were thinking, okay, this is a team that's going to miss the playoffs. The Habs are going to get a lottery pick, and it was going to be a disaster season for Florida. And they ended up turning it around. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that their team played better. A lot of that had to do with the fact that Matthew Tkachuk took the team on his back and essentially carried them. And it also had to do with, an unsung hero by the name of Alex Lyon, who came in and played some fantastic hockey. And the thing with Florida is that they're a very offensively gifted team. This is a team that can score goals, right? We know how good they are at putting the puck in the net. We know how good they are at playing offense and being very good at being able to, outscore their opponents. The problem is that you're coming up against arguably the best team we've seen in decades. Like, we have not seen a team as good as this Boston Bruins team in decades. But the thing
Well,
is
they're
that,
arguably the best team in history, in playoff,
yeah, one
in
of
NHL
for sure.
history.
And so I think what's going to be tough about this series is that although the Bruins are absolutely stacked and are probably the best team on paper in this league, not only just statistically, but even just player wise as well, I think Florida may give Boston a hard time. And the reason I say that is because it's the style Florida plays. They're built in a way, and they play a style that is very playoff like. And I know the Bruins, they're the big bad Bruins. They're always going to be the big bad Bruins. That's not going to change. But, Matthew Tkachuk is a playoff type player, right? They've got guys on this team as well, especially their bottom lines like Ryan Lomberg, Giovanni Smith, Nick Cousins as well. These are guys that are going to get in the face of the Boston Bruins. And the Bruins, although they're similar, that's exactly why this series is going to be tougher than a lot of people might give it credit for. The only difference that I think is going to make a huge factor is one of two things. If Boston's defense can shut down Florida's goal scoring. What I mean by that is that if Boston can play solid defense and their goaltending holds up like they have all season, then I think this series is done in 5. I think Boston takes this in 5. No questions asked, no problem. I don't think that's a big deal. But if Florida can score and they can put the puck in the net against the Bruins, it may be tougher than people give them credit for. And I know Bobrovsky hasn't been good, and I know that Alex Lyons come in and played really well, but playoff hockey is playoff hockey, and things always change. Even within a week, things change, and you never know in this league. And so for me, I think it's going to be an entertaining matchup. I think the Bruins, to be honest, are just going to run away with it. I think in 5, even in 6, maybe, if Florida can get 2 wins. But I wouldn't count Florida out of this series, because I know a lot of Bruins fans, and I know a lot of people that I've watched as well, that have said that Florida would be a tough matchup for the Bruins. And I think that seeing how they've played them this year, Florida, it might be, it might be closer than people give it credit for, like I said.
My thoughts on this series essentially, just to sum it up, it all comes down to defense and goaltending. If Allmark is not their guy, well, they have Swayman. They're a
Mm.
fantastic 1A, 1B dynamic duo. They won the Jennings Trophy for best goaltending duo in the NHL. Allmark is poised to win the Vezina this year. So, that's what the Florida Panthers have to face. What the Florida Panthers have in return is Bobrovsky, who's being paid over $10 million and not living up to his contract. Spencer Knight, who is in rehab, and Alex Lyon, who is deemed as the new Hamburglar this year and really helped them get into the playoffs. But the things I do like about the Florida Panthers is how they have these gritty guys that will match up nicely against
Yeah.
the Boston Bruins. You have Matthew Kachuk, you have Radko Gudas, you have Nick Cousins, Giovanni Smith. So that is fantastic to see. You have Eric Stahl, who has playoff experience. He's been to the Stanley Cup Finals, the Montreal Canadiens. This is a very good team, but I'm expecting Barkov to step it up because I know a lot of people were kind of disappointed with his production in the regular season. But Brandon Montour and Carter Verhaeghe really stepped it up this year. Verhaeghe had over 40 goals, and Montour had 73 points. And no one would have thought that Montour would have had this many points for an NHL defenseman. Not only that, like you were saying before, very offensive-minded team. They're first in terms of shots on goal, and for goals, they're sixth in the league. Their power play is ranked at 10, but again, like I was alluding to before, defense is their problem. Their penalty kill is only ranked at 23rd in the league, and with the Boston Bruins arguably having the best power play in the league, they're going to be challenged a lot. This is a team that has David Pastrnak, who scored over 60 goals. It's a player that I believe will cause the Florida Panthers a lot of trouble. You have
Well,
Patrice Bergeron, who has a lot of experience in the playoffs. Brad Marchand, he's known to be a pest. Zaka really picked up his game with the Boston Bruins after being traded by New Jersey. They add Tyler Bertuzzi. They have Taylor Hall back from injury. You have A.J. Greer, who's a very physical guy. Trent Frederick, who's a very physical guy. Garneth Hathaway. That fourth line's going to be so hard to play with against, and it's going to be so fun to see them play with each other because that is the essential fourth line that you would like to have in the playoffs, especially if you go on a playoff run. That fourth line is amazing, and that third line to have Taylor Hall playing third line minutes. Holy crap! This team is really deep.
well, one thing that's interesting too about the Bruins is that they're actually still David Krejci isn't on this list, Nick Foligno's not on this list, and they're on this lineup because they're injured currently and they're supposed to be back for the playoffs. Obviously, they lost Bergeron yesterday at the Habs game. Let's hope that's not a huge loss for them. But to me, I think that you mentioned goaltending and defense, and as much as I agree, Boston's got four lines that can absolutely destroy you, and they've got three defensive pairings that can absolutely destroy you. And I think with Florida, they're reliant on that top line, right? They don't really have the depth that you need in a playoff run. I know Montour's had a good season. Ekblad, when healthy, is very good. That decor is not that impressive. Josh Mahura is not that impressive. Gudis, apart from his physicality, isn't that impressive. Mark Stahl isn't that impressive. So I think the Bruins are going to win the defensive battle, and I also think they're going to win the goaltending battle. Right. The question becomes is kind of like you said before, although Florida can score goals and they're sixth in the league in goals forward, they're 21st in the league in goals against, right? Which is a problem, especially coming up against a team as good as the Bruins. So the question is that, like I said, are they going to be able to outscore the Bruins? Because if Matthew Kachuk, Carter Verhaeghe, and Alex Barkov play the way they played all regular season, and they carry the load for Florida, yeah, I think absolutely Florida may be able to steal this series. But are they going to be able to do that? Is it going to be a question of, those three guys are going to step up? Because your second line matching up against the Bruins is not going to work. Your third line is not going to match up against the Bruins, and the fourth line isn't, right? So what's Paul Maurice's plan going into this series, knowing you're severely outmatched player-wise, but not only that, you're coming up against a very, very good team who has consistent goaltending all season, has been very good defensively all season, and also, you know, very good offensively. So to me, I as much as I've praised Florida, and I think, you know, they've played well in the second half of the season and they've shown their resilience, I'm gonna go Boston in 5 in this series. I think Florida takes maybe a game away from them, because, you know, I don't believe that sweeps. I don't think that you can ever predict the sweep, just because it's so tough to do that. But I think 5 is normal for the Bruins, and I think that it's going to be the David Pastrnak show in this series easily. You know, career season for him. Like you mentioned, 60 goals in his season as well. Yeah, 63 goals total. Like, this is a guy that's going to tear Florida apart, I think. And I just don't think that Florida is going to have enough in the tank. So it's Boston in 5
Yeah,
for me.
and everyone talks about how, good the Boston Bruins are offensively, but they finished first with the best penalty kill, and for goals allowed, they finished first. They let in the
Yeah.
least amount of goals, and sure, they did finish 12th in terms of the power play, but I still believe that, having the likes of Pasternak, Marchand, DeBrusque, Bergeron, and Hampus Lindholm on the power play is fantastic. And then your second unit of having guys like Taylor Hall, potentially Bertuzzi or Zaka or whatever you want to do with that second power play unit. Like, the Boston Bruins have so many assets at their disposal. They could do whatever they want. They have so many pieces that are interchangeable players that could play on any line. Like, the Boston Bruins are the team to beat. It's you can't sugarcoat it. It's as simple as that, in my opinion. And you look at this team, and there's so many things to like about the Boston Bruins. Even the pieces they added, like Dmitry Orlov, Bertuzzi, during the deadline, that was fantastic. Having Felino having a resurgent season is fantastic. Zaka having a breakout year, Hampus Lindholm having a fantastic year as well. Everything went right for the Boston Bruins this year. My pick, the Boston Bruins to win this. No doubt about it. If Florida does win, whoever bets on Florida to win, they're gonna win a lot of money. But at the end of the day, I do believe Boston will win in either 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, I don't think
But
the series goes to 7, but
yeah, it's not
uh,
gonna. I highly doubt it's gonna go
unless,
to
like
seven.
I said, unless Florida really, really outplays Boston, and they give them a good run for their money, I don't think this goes to 7.
If
I think the Bruins are just too
Yeah,
good.
yeah, and I highly doubt that the Boston Bruins are going to take the Florida Panthers very likely. They have a very good
No.
culture, having Sweeney as their general manager. He's that guy that wants to win. You have, Montgomery, who wants to win. He has a lot to prove because, he was out of a job for a couple years because of his addiction, and he was in rehab, and he comes in and he's going to win the
Yeah.
Jack Adams Trophy this year for best coach, coaching arguably the best team in the modern day, in the history of modern day hockey. So that's fantastic. And yeah, the Boston Bruins are a team that is tightly knit. They know what it takes to win, and they're gonna fight till the very end. So, guys, I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Who wins this series, the Florida Panthers or the Boston Bruins? Make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we'd like to get into some debates with you guys and hear your takes. It's always fun come playoff time, and we will continue this series with the New York Islanders and the Carolina Hurricanes coming up very soon, along with other matchups that we're going to be breaking down heading into the NHL playoffs up until the Stanley Cup Finals. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. We'll see you in the next episode of the Young Guns Podcast.